Up, up, and away in a beautiful balloon that may very well touch down here at the Williams Grove Speedway for the Skull Super Dirt Series, the first dirt track race of the year for the Skull Trail. Pennsylvania regular Craig Von Doren talks about running with the Dirt Invaders.
Last year we were kind of green, we didn't know who we could run with and who you couldn't. And now this year we're kind of a little bit smarter. We know who we can race wheel to wheel with and who we got to keep an eye out for. And it's definitely a learning process. The more you can race, the better off. It always works out to be better that way.
Doug Hoffman has run at Williams Grove and Grandview quite a few times. The tracks are right in his backyard. Doug, does that give you an advantage?
Not really. We only come here once a year with the dirt modified, and we're going to have to go out in warm-ups and kind of sort the car out right out in warm-ups and just see where we're at.
Alan Johnson couldn't wait to make it to the Keystone State this year. He's been running very well. Alan reflected on his plans for the Skull Tour.
Well, we always start out going for it, but we have to take it as it comes. If we're doing good and the car's supporting itself, then we keep going. If not, then we pick and choose.
These drivers wish they could have picked where they wound up. This is a consolation race with Billy Pouch in front, Toby Tobias in second, Jimmy Horton is in the active 2, and Kenny Brightbill is in car number 19. And that's Danny Johnson and Brett Hearn scoping out the competition. Feature time. Billy Decker starts on the pole for the Skull Super Dirt Series 92-lap feature event. The field was packed with top competitors, which made for great racing like this three-wide dice between Kenny Tremont, Richie Urich, and Jack Johnson at the drop of the green. This jingle on lap number 5 took out Steve Payne's 7X and, unfortunately, also took out the 21J, the Altair audio car driven by Jeff Trombley. On lap 10, Kenny Tremont in the 115 worked to the outside of Decker's number 91, and heading towards turn number 1, he took over the top spot. Alan Johnson had moved to third, while Jack Johnson in the 12 and Danny Johnson in the Freightliner car diced for position. Just behind them, Brett the Jet Hearn working the outside lane in the Auto Palace car number 72. The outside groove was definitely the faster of the two in the early part of the race. Doug Hoffman found out running the outside, though, could be a bit dangerous as he swept the outside guardrail in car number 1. Now here, Alan Johnson passes Billy Decker on the inside of the third turn to take the number 2 spot, while Danny Johnson in car number 6 works the outside lane, and the 704, that's Billy Pouch, struggles to stay with the pack. Jimmy Horton is behind him in the active 2 car working to the inside of Jack Johnson. Now here's Allen, who was really running like a bear, closing in on Kenny Tremont when Sean George slows on the front stretch. On the restart, Tremont is caught asleep at the wheel as Alan Johnson goes into the number 1 spot in the Conley LaFoy 14J. Now there's the Auto Palace 72 of Brett Hearn, and there's the Coors Extra Gold of Doug Hoffman. He had a flat right rear tire. On the ensuing restart, Decker tried to sneak to the inside of Tremont, but Hearn found a lane through the middle and wound up sneaking past Tremont to go into the number 3 spot. Further back in the field, Bob McCready was running his own race while Jimmy Horton was running out of the race in the active 2 car. Billy Pouch had worked his way up into contention and was battling with Kenny Tremont for a position, but he would later drop out with a flat tire. Meanwhile, a battle for the lead shaped up. Brett Hearn on the outside, Alan Johnson on the inside. Hearn would stay on the outside from turn 1 all the way around to turn 4, and on lap 45, the Auto Palace 72 went into the top spot as Kenny Tremont, unfortunately, went to the pits. Danny Johnson was working hard running the outside lane of the speedway, trying to catch the leader.
Yeah, I think the inside is a little quicker, but, you can't run the inside when the guy ahead of you is running the inside, so, you got to go where you have to go.
Danny battled for the rest of the race with Billy Decker. He would ultimately finish in the number 3 spot. Meanwhile, up front, Alan Johnson was making a last-ditch attempt at catching the Auto Palace 72 of Brett Hearn. He went for the inside off turn number 4, but Hearn held him off in the drag race to the checkered flag and took the victory.
This is the meat of the season that we're coming into now, and the schedule is very tough, and we run consecutive nights, and to have the team morale high right now is really important.
The following day, the drivers moved on to the Grandview Speedway in Bechtelsville, Pennsylvania. Grandview is a much smaller and tighter racetrack, but the action is still fast and hectic. Here's an example as Jimmy Horton works to the inside of Sean George during a heat race. Unfortunately, the rain stopped play. The event will be made up in mid-August.
And we can tell you that race has been officially rescheduled.
Mile Point Speedway played host to a National Quarter Mile Dirt Track Championship qualifier, which attracted a lot of outside invaders who would have to deal with Chuck Akulis.
Well, this car has really helped us a lot on this track. It's the Byros chassis and the small block engine is really working good, and along with the big tires, it's really helped us a lot. I'm sure you're going to see tonight that guys are going to go with the small rubber too, so it's a matter of getting the car working right and dialed in with the driver, I guess.
While Akulis has dominated, Mike Colston's Ford-powered Car 51 has also been tough.
Well, hopefully the track's going to come to us. So far the track's been a little bit on the bumpy side and a little bit on the wet side. It's starting to smooth up and get hardened out like it always does. So the track should come to us and we should start running a little better. And it should put a little cramp in our style.
The large purse for this event attracted a number of Dirt's top drivers. Look at this super heat with Doug Hoffman, Allen, and Danny Johnson, and Chuck Akulis starting outside the front row. Akulis was able to take the lead on the backstretch on the opening lap and go on to victory, while Danny Johnson and his brother Allen wound up having to run the consolation race just to qualify for the feature event. They finished 1 and 2. Come feature time, Dick Marcinko and Mike Van Dusen, two track regulars, started up on the front row as the field came down to the start of this 55-lap, $5,555 to win feature event. Mike Colston's night got off to a rough start with this lap 4 jingle that involved Danny Johnson. He would have to go to the rear of the field. Meanwhile, Brett Hearn in the Auto Palace 72 found the small quarter-mile track to his liking as he first got by Dick Marcinko and then started to work on Chuck Akulis as a small block battled a big block for the #1 spot on the racetrack. Hearn's right on the inside. That didn't work, so he went upstairs in turn #1 and used the outside lane, came off turn #2, and wound up with the #1 spot on the racetrack. Mike Colston was moving up very strongly through the field after his early race jingle. He worked into the top 5 in seemingly no time at all as he worked to the inside of Roger Phelps in car number 99. As he then battled with Frank Cozy down the backstretch, Cozy almost hit him and wound up putting himself in the backstretch wall. Back to racing action. Colston continues to slice his way through the field as Mike Van Dusen, the outside pole sitter, runs into a problem with car number 56. Colston worked his way up to the #3 spot, and the final couple of laps were barn burners as Hearn had to hold off both Akulis and Colston. Akulis had his chance but could not make the pass, and Hearn held on in this wild 3-car dash to claim the payday. The win capped off a great 3-day period for Hearn. In the 2 races run in that time, he had won both.
It's time.
Hills, just outside of Montreal, Quebec. She's a demanding but beautiful 3-cornered tri-oval. She's hosted some big crowds and some not so large crowds. She's Senair Super Speedway, the scene of some glory, triumph for some, and heartaches for others. In 1992, Dirt makes its 4th consecutive appearance at the Senair Super Speedway. Remember back in 1989, what a diverse field that one was. Kenny Schrader in the yellow number 91. On the outside, the team car to Decker, he'd go on to win. Remember Mike McLaughlin, the Billy Taylor number 1? He had the fastest car on the track, but then Senair just jumped up and bit him. Indeed, that can happen to almost anybody at Senair because the straightaways are so fast. And then you come down into turn number 1, and if you're on the outside there, might as well buy the farm because you could buy the wall. And then from that point on, you go down to a backstretch dogleg. It's taking full bore, full speed. It separates the men from the boys. And remember what I said about the outside of turn number 1? Well, you can call him Hollywood, you can call him the Jet, but up at Senair, they just called Brett Hearn another victim.
Well, I hit that wall down there and won, and I saw stars for a couple of minutes. And once I shook the cobwebs loose, I jumped down to Mark's car, and unfortunately our Freightliner car is hurt pretty bad, but we'll fix that.
Indeed, the Jet has been nothing more than a victim of the demanding Senair Oval. Take last year, for example, when the car quit, he had the race in the bag, only 10 laps from the end. What of Doug Hoffman, you ask? There's another star on asphalt and dirt, but at Senair, he's never better than second.
I figured once I got Brett, once Brett had motor troubles or whatever happened there, I thought we were home free, but he brought out the yellow and it put Bob right on my tail, and I just couldn't get away from him. The car shoved the nose going into 1, and he got underneath me.
So who has been the master of Senair? Well, none other than the master of going faster, barefoot Bob McCready himself. Here in 1989, he goes underneath Billy Decker. He was on his way to victory when the car broke. In 1990, he was not to be denied. He went to victory lane. But at Senair, even the master can succumb. Here in 1991, McCready spins in turn number 1, but amazingly, he came back from this to win 2 in a row. Can Bob McCready three-peat? We'll find out on July 12th. And so The first ever appearance for the dirt cars on asphalt. And yes, these were truly dirt cars, big and boxy, a huge crowd on hand for the novelty. The lead was definitely not the place to be on this particular day. There's Danny Johnson, the Fred Bros number 113. He had trouble leading right off the bat. Here's Bob McCready. He goes under Mike Romano. McCready would be a story when he tries to take the lead from Danny Johnson. Johnson still smoking. McCready crashes into him. Both cars would be sidelined. And that would make Mike Romano the new leader. And now here, Brett Hearn in the Ford Pro puts on a challenge, but Romano and Hearn come together and crash hard into turn number 2. This angle will show you just what a hard wall shot this particular crash would be. Indeed, the lead was not the place to be on this particular day, except for one man. Here, Jack Cottrell puts a move on Glenn Huff, takes over second place in turn number 3. Now our leader with only 2 laps to go, Jack Johnson, loses a tire over in turn number 2, and that puts Cottrell's number 8 into the lead. One last challenge on the last lap from Randy Slack, driving from Pete Bicknell. Cottrell holds him off in the 8 car, becomes the first ever dirt asphalt winner. Since the earliest days of modified racing,
for this week's Sunoco High Performance Report, we're going to talk about the sway bar on a dirt modified. Also known as an anti-roll bar, plays a very important role not only in stabilizing the front end of the dirt modified, as well as the quest for speed as weight transfers from the right front to the left rear of the car. The sway bar has various adjustments. For instance, at rolling wheels, when the track is tacky and has a lot of bite, you'll run the sway bar in the front position to transfer less weight to the left rear. And when the track gets slicker and the traction leaves the speedway, simply just move it back to the rear hole and add a little traction to your race car. Using the adjustment on the sway bar is just another way to fine-tune a dirt modified to various track conditions. For this week's Sunoco High Performance Report, driver of the Wheels Discount Auto Supply Stores, car number 91, I'm Billy Decker.
The weekend wars begin at the Orange County Fair Speedway, where the small block modified feature was a war between Danny Johnson in the Freightliner number 6 and Brett the Jet Hearn in the Miller Genuine Draft car number 1. Hearn going into turn number 1 here would get this close down on the inside of the racetrack, but that's as close as he would get. Danny Johnson took the victory in the small block feature. In the big block feature, Danny could do no better than the number 3 spot. Brett Hearn wound up passing Ralph Hetzler on lap 20 and went on to victory in the Auto Palace 72, while Johnson barely squeaked past Rich Rickey for that 3rd spot. We now get our first look this year at the Frogtown International Speedway, where the dirt small blocks run on Saturday night. Kevin Federle had this challenge from Randy Connors on the last lap, but went on to take the victory on this very fast half-mile speedway. Thursday night was a Wheels Discount Auto Supply Syracuse qualifier for the small blocks at Can-Am. Rick Wilson took the lead there from Kevin Martin, but Martin broke and Wilson ran out of gas. And it turned out that the 90 car of Rob Winters wound up in victory lane. Rob is a very happy man, as he now has a starting spot for the Wheels Discount Auto 358 Championship at Syracuse at Super Dirt Week. Saturday night, it was the Martin and Wilson show yet again. Kevin Martin driving car number 18, Rick Wilson, the Joyceville Jet, in the 24K. This time around, Martin and Wilson's cars held together, and Martin beat Wilson to the line for a win. Sunday night, it was a 50-lap feature at the Cornwall Speedway that was a wild one. Here, Laurent Ladesseur in the 23 bumps to the inside of Randy Connors to take the lead, then hits a slower car and drifts down to the infield. As he tries to get back on the racetrack, he's hit by Pierre Bissonnet in the 124. Both drivers were out of the running, and Ovid Doiron inherited the lead with 1 lap to go and took the big feature event win. On to the Cayuga County Fair Speedway in Weedsport for a stellar Sunday night modified feature that saw Pat Ward in the 42P jump out into the early lead over the 1S of Greg Hickson. They battled while there was great 3-wide racing going on through the pack. Jeff Trombley, Steve Payne, and the 115 of Kenny Tremont are joined by the 1 of Joe Plazek. Excellent racing on the high banks. Here, Plazek makes a move for the number 2 spot as he sneaks to the inside of Hickson and sets his sights on leader Ward as Payne takes 2 cars in the 7X over in turn number 2. Plazek and Payne would go into the 1st and 2nd spots as Hickson battled and Danny Johnson in the 6th scraped the outside wall. Plazek was able to pull out some distance on Payne towards the end of the race, but the Hurricane continued to battle on, and unfortunately, this is what happened to Greg Hickson after a stellar run in the feature event. Plazek was able to stem the forces of the Hurricane and go on to pick up his first feature win of 1992 at the Cayuga County Fair Speedway. That's the Weekend Wars. I'm Paul Small.
Our Fuji points picture this week